Welcome to ChronosX Secrets. In the summer of 2015, in a dimly lit studio in London, a 30-year-old woman stepped onto a soundstage in front of executive producers, camera crews, and Hollywood power brokers. She was exhausted. She was broke. She had flown in from Israel after dozens of humiliating auditions, rejections, and crushed dreams. In fact, just weeks earlier, she had quietly decided to pack her bags, abandon acting forever, and return to law school. This audition was her last attempt. The music swelled, the camera rolled, and as she looked into the lens, something transformed in her eyes. It wasn't the look of a typical starlet. It was the fierce, unyielding gaze of a combat instructor who had trained soldiers in the desert. When director Zack Snyder watched the monitor, he didn't just see an actress performing a scene. He saw an ancient warrior coming to life. She didn't know it yet, but that single screen test was about to smash open the gates of global cinema, rewrite the rules of female empowerment, and turn an unknown girl from a quiet Israeli town into the undisputed queen of blockbusters. This is the untold story of Gal Gadot, a woman who walked the fine line between military duty and red carpet glamour, overcame relentless skepticism, and proved that real power is born from resilience. To understand how Gal Gadot reached the pinnacle of global fame, you have to travel back to April 30th, 1985, in the small city of Petah Tikva, Israel. She was born into a loving, close-knit family. Her mother, Irit, was a physical education teacher, and her father, Michael, was an engineer. Her family surname had originally been Greenstein, but her parents chose to Hebraicize it to Gadot, which means riverbanks in Hebrew. Her first name, Gal, translates to wave. Growing up in the quiet, tree-lined suburb of Rosh Ha'ayin, Gal was anything but a child prodigy aiming for Hollywood. She was an athletic, energetic tomboy. She spent 12 years studying jazz and hip-hop dance, played basketball, and worked ordinary teenage jobs, including flipping burgers at a local Burger King and babysitting for neighbors. Her grandmother had escaped the horrors of Europe during World War II, while her grandfather, Abraham Weiss, had survived the nightmares of Auschwitz as a teenager, losing his entire family to the Holocaust. From her grandfather, young Gal learned a lesson that would forever define her character. No matter how dark the world becomes, you must always choose grace, strength, and joy over bitterness. In 2004, at 18 years old, Gal entered the Miss Israel pageant, mostly for fun and to pass the time before her mandatory military service. To her absolute shock, she won the crown. Suddenly, the tall, athletic 18-year-old was thrust into the international spotlight, representing her country at the Miss Universe pageant in Ecuador. Then came the first twist in her life. Gal hated the hyper-commercial, rigid world of international pageantry. She didn't want to be a polished trophy. So, in a move that baffled pageant organizers, she intentionally sabotaged her own chances. She showed up late for rehearsals, wore the wrong dresses, and pretended not to speak fluent English. She wanted out. She wanted something real. In late 2004, at 19 years old, Gal traded her beauty pageant tiara for military boots and a green uniform. Under Israeli law, military service is mandatory for young citizens. Gal joined the Israel Defense Forces, entering the tough, demanding world of basic training. Recognizing her intense athleticism and discipline, the IDF assigned her to serve as a combat fitness instructor. For 2 grueling years, she trained hundreds of soldiers in hand-to-hand combat, tactical conditioning, and physical endurance. It was during these 2 intense years in uniform that Gal learned the mechanical discipline of weaponry, martial movement, and mental toughness. The Army gives you discipline and respect, she would recall years later. You learn that you aren't the center of the world. When her military service concluded in 2006, Gal enrolled at the IDC Herzliya University to pursue a degree in law and international relations. She envisioned a stable, respectable career as a lawyer or diplomat. Hollywood wasn't even on her radar. Then, fate intervened. In 2007, a casting director visiting Israel spotted a photo of Gal and invited her to audition for a high-profile role in London. The movie was Quantum of Solace, the upcoming James Bond blockbuster. The role was Camille Montez, the Bond girl opposite Daniel Craig. Gal was hesitant. She told her agent, "I'm studying law. I'm not an actress. The script is in English. It doesn't make sense." Her agent persuaded her to try just once. Gal flew to London, walked into the audition room, and delivered a surprisingly grounded performance. Though the role ultimately went to Olga Kurylenko, the casting director looked at Gal and said something that changed everything. "You have something special. Don't go back to law school just yet." The acting bug had bitten her, but the road ahead was lined with rejection. In 2008, while taking acting lessons and auditioning for local TV shows in Israel, Gal married Yaron Varsano, a successful Israeli real estate developer whom she had met years earlier at a desert retreat. Their bond would become her rock throughout the tumultuous decade that followed. That same year, the same casting director who had auditioned her for James Bond remembered her unique blend of physical intensity and effortless poise. Justin Lin was directing Fast and Furious, the fourth installment of the multi-billion-dollar street racing franchise. He needed an actress for the role of Giselle Yashar, a smooth, intelligent operative with sharp tactical instincts. When Justin Lin reviewed Gal's audition tape, he noticed something unique listed on her resume: 2 years of combat experience in the IDF. He cast her immediately. When Gal arrived on set alongside Vin Diesel and Paul Walker, she made a bold decision that shocked the stunt crew. She refused to use stunt doubles for her action scenes. She performed her own high-speed driving maneuvers, hung from speeding vehicles, and handled firearms with absolute precision. Her military training wasn't just a bullet point on a resume, it was her greatest asset. Fast and Furious released in April 2009 and became a massive global hit. Gal was brought back for Fast 5 in 2011 and Fast and Furious 6 in 2013. To the outside world, Gal Gadot had made it. She was in a mega franchise, walking red carpets and earning steady paychecks. But beneath the bright lights, a silent storm was brewing. By late 2013, the film industry was changing, and Gal's career hit a terrifying dead end. Her character in the Fast and Furious franchise was killed off in the 6th film. Suddenly, the calls stopped coming. She spent months flying back and forth between Tel Aviv and Los Angeles, spending tens of thousands of dollars on airfare and hotels, only to face endless rejections. She was constantly told she was too international, not famous enough, or too tall. She was nearing 30. She and Yaron were raising their young daughter, Alma, born in 2011. The relentless grind of auditioning, hoping, and failing was destroying her spirit. "You go through screen test after screen test," she later admitted. "You get close, then they say no. It reached a point where I told my husband, I can't do this anymore. The rejection is too hard." In early 2015, broke and emotionally exhausted, she decided to walk away. She went back to Israel, made plans to re-enroll in school, and decided to leave Hollywood in her rear-view mirror. Then, her phone rang. It was her manager in Los Angeles. Warner Brothers was casting a top-secret role for a massive upcoming superhero movie directed by Zack Snyder. They wanted her to fly to LA for one last screen test. They wouldn't even tell her the name of the character. Gal was so disillusioned that she almost said no, but her husband convinced her to get on the plane. "Give it one more shot," he told her. "What do you have to lose?" She arrived on the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank, California. She was led into a cold room with several other high-profile actresses. The atmosphere was thick with tension. To combat her rising anxiety, Gal put in her headphones and started playing a song that always gave her energy, "Run the World" by Beyoncé. She danced alone in the dressing room, shaking off the fear, tapping into her inner strength. When she walked into the audition room, director Zack Snyder finally revealed the secret. She was testing for the iconic role of Wonder Woman in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. No woman had portrayed Wonder Woman in a live-action theatrical film in the character's 75-year history. The pressure was astronomical. Gal delivered her lines, did a screen test alongside Ben Affleck, and flew back to Israel, expecting another rejection. 7 excruciating weeks passed. Silence. Then, one day, Gal was sitting on an airplane preparing to land in Los Angeles for another small project, when her phone reconnected to the cellular network. a text message popped up from Zack Snyder. "Welcome to the family, Wonder Woman." Gal screamed so loud on the plane that people thought something was wrong. She covered her face, crying tears of sheer relief. She had landed the role of a lifetime. But the moment her casting was officially announced to the public in December 2013, a brutal international backlash exploded across the internet. Comic book forums, news outlets, and internet trolls tore Gal apart before she had even filmed a single frame. Critics claimed she was too thin, that her body didn't fit the muscular Amazonian warrior from the comics, that her accent was too strong, and that an Israeli model could never carry an American cultural icon. The online abuse was relentless and deeply personal. Many actors would have crumbled under that level of public humiliation. But Gal remembered her grandfather's wisdom and her IDF training. When the wind blows hard, you stand firm. She hired world-class trainers and began a grueling 6-month physical regimen. For 6 hours a day, she lifted heavy weights, practiced sword fighting, learned horseback riding, studied kung fu and jiu-jitsu, and put on 17 pounds of lean muscle. When Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice hit theaters in March 2016, the film itself received mixed reviews from critics. But amidst the debate, almost every single reviewer agreed on one thing. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman stole the entire movie. When her character leaped into the climactic battle against Doomsday, accompanied by Tina Guo's iconic electric cello theme, audiences in theaters worldwide erupted into cheers. In 2 minutes of screen time, Gal silenced millions of doubters. Warner Brothers immediately fast-tracked a standalone Wonder Woman movie, directed by Patty Jenkins. It was a massive financial gamble, a female-led superhero film directed by a woman, with a production budget exceeding $140 million. What the public didn't know was that during the filming of crucial reshoots for the movie in late 2016, Gal was carrying a massive secret. She was 5 months pregnant with her second daughter, Maya. In the freezing rain at Leavesden Studios in England, Gal was performing intense action sequences while pregnant. To hide her baby bump, the costume department had to cut out the front of her famous metallic suit and cover her stomach with a bright green fabric so the visual effects team could digitally remove her belly in post-production. She threw punches, swung swords, and ran through muddy trenches while freezing, exhausted, and dealing with severe morning sickness. She refused to complain, keeping the mood on set light and cheerful. Director Patty Jenkins would later say, "She's a workout beast, but she was also doing it all while pregnant. There were days where we looked at her and said, 'You are a real-life superhero.'" On June 2, 2017, Wonder Woman was released in theaters worldwide. What happened next was nothing short of a cultural phenomenon. The movie shattered box office records, earning over $822 million globally. It became the highest-grossing film directed by a solo woman at that time, and the highest-earning superhero origin story in history. Young girls and boys dressed up in Wonder Woman tiaras. Mothers wept in theaters watching a strong, compassionate woman lead soldiers through no man's land, and critics praised Gal's performance as iconic, warm, and powerfully authentic. Gal Gadot didn't just play a hero, she became a global symbol of hope, strength, and grace. Her salary for the first Wonder Woman film was reported to be around $300,000, a standard figure for an initial superhero contract. But when the sequel, Wonder Woman 1984, was greenlit, Gal and her team negotiated a massive $10 million paycheck, asserting her value as one of the most bankable stars on Earth. With global stardom came immense power, and Gal immediately used her influence to reshape the industry from the inside. During the height of the #MeToo movement in late 2017, reports surfaced that Hollywood producer Brett Ratner, whose production company had co-financed Wonder Woman, had been accused of severe sexual misconduct by multiple women. Gal made a quiet, compromise-free move behind closed doors. She informed Warner Brothers that she would refuse to sign on for the Wonder Woman sequel unless Brett Ratner and his company were completely removed from the franchise. She put her multi-million-dollar career on the line to stand up for women who had been harmed. Warner Brothers listened. Ratner's contract was terminated, and his company was dropped from the sequel. In 2018, Time magazine named Gal Gadot one of the 100 most influential people in the world. She wasn't interested in just starring in movies, she wanted to create them. Gal and her husband Yaron founded their own production company, Pilot Wave Motion Pictures. Their mission was to find and tell stories about extraordinary real-life women who had been forgotten by history. Among their projects was a biographical series about Hedy Lamarr, the stunning 1940s actress who secretly co-invented the frequency-hopping technology that paved the way for modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and a feature film about Irina Sendler, a brave Polish nurse who saved over 2,500 Jewish children from the Warsaw Ghetto during the Holocaust. For Gal, telling Irina Sendler's story wasn't just a business venture, it was a deeply personal tribute to her grandfather who had survived Auschwitz. In March 2020, as the world plunged into unprecedented lockdowns during the global pandemic, Gal felt a deep desire to send a message of unity to millions of isolated people. She gathered a group of her celebrity friends, including Kristen Wiig, Will Ferrell, and Jimmy Fallon, and created a viral video, John Lennon's Imagine. The video was posted on Instagram and spread across the globe within hours. Then came another unexpected twist. The public reaction was swift and brutally polarizing. Instead of bringing comfort, the video was widely mocked on social media. Millions of people losing their jobs and homes during a global crisis did not want to see wealthy celebrities singing from their luxury mansions. It became one of the most famous viral missteps of the pandemic era. Once again, the world waited to see how Gal would handle the public backlash. Would she get defensive? Would she blame the audience? Instead, Gal handled the situation with humility and humor. In subsequent interviews, she owned the mistake completely at herself and admitting, "It was done with the best intentions, but sometimes you miss the mark. It wasn't the right time or the right thing. It was in poor taste." Her willingness to take responsibility and laugh at her own missteps showed a rare level of maturity that endeared her even more to fans. By 2021, Gal Gadot was unstoppable. She starred alongside Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Ryan Reynolds in Netflix's action comedy Red Notice. The film had a massive $200 million budget, and Gal received a reported $20 million salary, placing her among the highest-paid actresses on the planet. When Red Notice premiered in November 2021, it shattered all streaming records, becoming the most-watched movie in Netflix history, with over 364 million hours viewed in its first 28 days. She followed that success by starring as Lynette Ridgway in Kenneth Branagh's stylish mystery Death on the Nile in 2022, and as a formidable secret agent in the spy thriller Heart of Stone in 2023. In 2024, she embraced a dramatic new challenge, stepping into the iconic shoes of the evil queen in Disney's live-action reimagining of Snow White. Yet, despite the private jets, the multi-million-dollar contracts, and the global fame, Gal kept her feet firmly on the ground. Her home life remained her sanctuary. She and Yaron expanded their family, welcoming their third daughter, Daniela, in 2021, and their fourth daughter, Ori, in early 2024. Raising 4 daughters amidst the madness of Hollywood was her greatest joy and toughest challenge. "When you're on set, you're a queen," she joked. "Then you go home and your kids tell you, 'Mom, I'm hungry, clean this up.' They keep you real." Looking back at the extraordinary arc of Gal Gadot's life, you see a story that defies every Hollywood cliché. She was the teenage tomboy who accidentally became Miss Israel, the combat instructor who learned strength in the desert, the struggling law student who stumbled into cinema, and the rejected actress who was one flight away from giving up forever. She faced systemic doubt, online harassment, physical exhaustion, and career-threatening setbacks. Yet, like the legendary warrior she portrayed on screen, she met every obstacle not with anger or despair, but with relentless grace, discipline, and an unshakable smile. Gal Gadot proved that true power isn't about physical dominance or red carpet glamour. True power is the ability to endure rejection without losing your faith, to stand firm when the world doubts you, and to turn every single drop of pain into fuel for your dreams. She showed us that within every ordinary person lies an extraordinary hero waiting for their moment to rise. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to ChronosX Secrets for more untold stories that changed the world.